Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the HuskerOnline Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipp. Robin Washett is driving back from Iowa, trying to pick up the pieces from that horrible second-half collapse. And we'll talk more about that later in the show, but my God, I was not happy watching that second-half collapse.
God, sometimes your reactions to things sometimes startle me. I was surprised how
it just angers me when you see guys like just go off like that are easily guardable.
Like, yeah, that kid from Council Bluffs, Abraham Lincoln. I think his name is Dix, Josh Dix, D-I-X, from Council Bluffs.
Good
right
city,
over the river.
Good town.
Right over the river.
All right, well, we got a lot to hit on.
I think that's his name, by the way. We'll have to double check that.
But we got a lot to hit on here with the transfer portal. And our opening headline, first and foremost, Nebraska picked up a key offensive tackle commitment from Elijah Pritchett, who was the starting right tackle at Alabama. Now, was their starter and in full context, didn't have a great year. I mean, when you look at the metrics and the numbers, but in terms of upside potential, you know, what kind of player he is, I mean, there's a lot there. And Nebraska doesn't have an Elijah Pritchett on its roster right now. They lost all of their key tackle bodies. Bryce Benhart. They obviously lost Micah Mazuka, who could play tackle. And then Turner Corcoran and Teddy Prohaska are coming off season-ending injuries again. So for Nebraska, getting a tackle, you have Gunnar Gatula in the program as well, was a key piece. And they go out and get Alabama's starting right tackle, Elijah Pritchett.
Here's the news, Sean. He could be your starting left tackle. If Nebraska lands the transfer from New Mexico State,
Chiesa,
yeah, Pete, then he would probably be the left tackle. Pete would be the left tackle. Pritchett would be the right, is the way I understand it.
And Pete, when you look at him, 6'8", 320, 31 game starter at left tackle, played 33 games. Pritchett started 10 games at right, actually was the season opening starter at left for Alabama. But you've got two guys with a lot of tackle starting experience, then Gunnar Gatula, and then you obviously have Teddy Prohaska and Turner Corcoran returning. So you have options, but obviously the two portal guys, I mean, when in doubt, you follow the money. And
right.
When Nebraska is committing, look, these aren't value portal additions. These are money additions.
With agents, with big-time agents. I mean, Pete has a big-time agent. Pete's agent is Jared Goff's agent. So yeah, these are big time. Now, Sean, I did it, and I always feel guilty after I do it. We just penciled these guys in as starters when there's guys in the program that would probably have something to say about that. You mentioned them, Prohaska. Teddy, from what I've heard, Teddy's right now. He's ready to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see where that is, though. I mean, he's coming off another major injury, and the mental end of it, the physical end of it, his mobility, how does he move? It's competitive, but yeah, they'll have more options. But clearly, if you're just being logical, Pete and Pritchett would be the guys like that would have the best odds.
I think so too. I just think a guy like Gunnar would have something to say about it. You know, Gunnar, he started how many games? He started 8 games, 9 games, something like that.
Yeah, the last half of the year.
Yeah, Gunnar Gatula, and he played through shoulder injury.
He's going to miss a spring.
Yeah. So
that's a big notable thing too. And I believe Latoski's going to miss the spring too.
I think you're right. Now, here's the thing. I don't think this conversation is the same with Latovsky as it is with Gatula. Sean, I don't like to act like I'm Milt Tenniper, but wouldn't you just tell Gunnar, just get stronger than hell? I mean, really just put on a lot of strength and, give it hell come August in camp. Maybe you look at that guy though. Look at see, Nebraska hasn't had a lot of guys that look like Elijah Pritchett up front for a while, Sean. They haven't.
It's a matter now, can they get him dialed in and coach him up? Because he had his ups and downs. I mean, he was Alabama's lowest graded lineman last year.
Hey, he graded sub 50 in the PFF, which is, I mean,
on a good team, that's hard to do. Now, we've seen it at Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska's had sub 50 tackle play in previous years.
Yeah. So back to Gunner. Yeah, you just tell Gunner, put as much strength as you can on, come and compete in August, see what happens. If you don't, if Pritchett's our left tackle and Pete is the right tackle, you're still in our plan. I mean, Gunner did so much for the team this year. I'm a little sensitive to that. And Teddy and Turner have done a lot too, right? They've done a lot for the program. But by the same token, they've done a lot for a program that was sub 500.
Yeah, being sensitive gets you fired.
Right.
That's the reality of what's going on in college football.
You're right. 100.
Like, we're all sensitive, but we don't run major operations like Nebraska football.
One thing that's happened, my perception is Dana Holgorsen came in and he's not particularly sensitive. He says we got to get better. We don't have the receiver room that we need. Now it's changing so quickly that it's amazing. The receiver room is changing dramatically, and it looks like the offensive line's changing dramatically.
And he's blunt. I mean, my understanding, his conversation with Naor, when Isaiah Naor, wasn't really pretty. He's like, yeah, I watched your film. You don't really have a future with me, and we're probably not going to play in the bowl game. And that let him out the door.
That's blunt. That's what I mean. I think that Nebraska maybe needed a little bit of that.
Yeah, and it kind of
you're chasing monsters, Sean. You watch Ohio State. Ohio State's a monster. They're a monster.
Yeah, and you're not going to beat them with sensitivity and cute stories.
Because they don't do that. They don't do sensitivity and cute stories. It's a machine. Michigan, subpar year, but that's a machine. Oregon is a machine. Penn State, doesn't Penn State look a bit like a machine to you? They win 10 plus every year. That doesn't happen with, well, I think we're okay at this position. Good luck with that.
The key now, though, is how do you mix this part of college football with high school recruiting?
That's a good question.
And how do you find high school players that you want to stick with? Because the reality is a lot of tough conversations are going to have to come for a lot of kids on this roster that aren't going to have a spot on the 105.
But inevitably, you have to have high school football and high school players, right?
Right.
So,
but we're watching the model change drastically this year.
Oh, yeah.
To the point where for in-state players, it's going to be so much harder to get a Nebraska football scholarship offer in high school.
Yep.
Ever than before.
Especially it'll be more in your face in years like this, where Nebraska is going to they've taken 15. I think the number's 15 now of transfer portal guys, right? 15, Pritchett's number 15.
Yeah, we're waiting on, we kind of know who 16 could be, but yeah, they're at 15 as of show taping.
Okay, as of show taping, but it's going to 16. It could go to 17. Hell, it
18.
could go to 18. Okay, so that number's the biggest it's ever been. Frost took 16
in
2022. Okay, 18 was not the plan when Rule took over this program. That conversation's evolved. So you're right. It leaves less room for high school players, especially now. What I was getting at, Sean, is especially in a program that needs to win. I'm not putting Matt Rule on a hot seat, but it just shouldn't be 6-6 again, right? Shouldn't be a 5-7. There is a level of expectation now, right? Right?
Oh yeah.
Not a crazy level of expectation, but I'd say Matt Rule would say, yeah, there should be a level.
Here's the thing. I mean, 8-9 wins, and you're knocking on the door of playoff discussion, but we know the difference of 6 to 8-9 is massive.
That's why they've added guys like Desan McCullough and Williams Neri and
Watson Trent, the linebacker.
Right. Yeah. Marcus Watson Trent. They've changed this team fairly dramatically in the last few weeks. Maybe dramatically. You could maybe just take out fairly. Don't qualify it. But it's done, Sean. It's done because of what you just said. They're not that far from being a playoff team. But they needed some guys. They definitely needed they needed an injection of talent.
Well, and guess who also has a massive stadium project on the horizon? And you know what pays for stadiums?
Wins.
And Troy Dannon, look, he's saying, like, you got to win. I mean, we can't. 6-6 is a great year, but we got to be better next year.
Troy Dannon, we've gotten a better feel for him, and I think that's a good way to say it. He's not. He's got to be somewhat demanding.
He's not Sean Eichhorst.
No, he's not.
Far from it.
Right, he's not. He's alpha. I mean, which is what you need because of what we established.
No, you always remind me a little bit of like a Barry Alvarez type AD, just kind of a confident guy that's going to say what needs to be said and relates well to the coaches.
You don't wrestle down Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, and Penn State without having alphas over there at North Stadium.
But let me throw this at you. Illinois won 10 games this year.
Great.
Not a lot separated them versus Nebraska.
No, that's what I mean. Nebraska's not where it needs to be talent-wise, or they weren't going into this portal cycle. After the portal cycle, it's gotten closer. Those ads that we've talked about, I mean, I'm thinking mainly about McCullough and Winery, Marcus Trent,
Dane Key, Isaiah Hunter.
Yeah. The kid with the
Hardly Gilmore.
Yeah, Hardly Gilmore.
We'll say them all.
Yeah, now it's closer. It's closer.
All right.
And then Elijah Pritchett and Sean. Close down Pete. Get him. Close that down. Get your starting left tackle.
You just think about if they can close with Isaiah Pete and get him at tackle with Pritchett and some other pieces out there. What's that look like at Arrowhead Stadium to open the year?
Well, first of all, I think it looks like a pretty good team. That's the thing that's in my mind most. But then, the excitement
with the
level. Full
offseason of Dana Holgorsen to build the offense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about when he came in.
Mm-hmm. But I know. It with Dylan Raiola
and John Butler, his full time to rebuild. But all right, when we come back, I want to get more into that roster discussion, as it's going to be a very fluid conversation until August about the 105 and the numbers for Nebraska. We'll break down those numbers and where Nebraska is at today. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, somewhere driving in Iowa right now, so he's not with us today. But before we get into some roster talk, this segment of the Husker Online Show brought to you by Omaha Steaks. And look, who does not want steaks? Whether for yourself, a gift, everybody wants steaks. And they continue their great special, 50% off site-wide. And then we're going to give you another $20 off with the promo code Huskers at omahasteaks.com. But tons of great boxes. In fact, I just sent a friend of mine a box of steaks last week.
God.
And
what a friend you are.
Got some filet mignon, some ribeyes in there, sirloins, hamburgers.
How much?
Oh, around 200.
200.
Yeah, like 15, 16 steaks in there.
Yeah. Good job.
So it was a big box, nice box of meat. But yeah, omahasteaks.com already has the great promo right now with 50% off on their boxes. We're giving you another $20 off. Just all you got to do at checkout, use the promo code Huskers. Thank you to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring the Husker Online Show. But let's delve into the lovely scholarship distribution chart. And to my knowledge, we were the first outlet to ever put these together. We've been doing, John Tallman and I years ago started putting these together.
The formula
of how you lay it out. And we've seen everyone else kind of do their own.
It's user friendly.
But yeah, we try to lay it out in a way so you kind of know what's going on. And things we've learned this week. Jalen Gramstad will be back for a 6th year. Sip and I talked about that on our Monday show. So they have 6 quarterbacks.
Could be your backup.
Yeah,
Number one backup.
I think obviously Raiola, then it's Gramstad, or how does Davila look in spring ball?
TJ
Latif's here too. So
people asked me on radio that yesterday, and they were amazed that I said Gramstad could be the number 2. There's just this level of amazement.
He was the number 2 for the bowl game.
Right. Yeah. That's before they brought it. Davila wasn't available at that point, nor was Latif. Latif couldn't have played he could not have played in the game.
No, he just practiced.
Yeah, he could practice.
Physically, he's skinny. I mean, he's got to develop and You watch Cement Bowl practice. He's got a ways to go with his body.
Develop physically, yeah.
And I think Davila's got a ways to go getting his body to the level it needs to be.
Yeah, he's the unknown to me, but I think Gramstad was number 2, like you said, behind Dylan for the bowl game, and I would think he'll go into August number 2.
Yeah, and he called in all the plays. I mean, he's kind of like a coach on the field type guy. So we'll see where that goes. Running back, I think a big discussion with 7 on the chart continues to be, will they go after somebody else? And look, they haven't yet. They've brought in over 30 visitors in the portal, and not a one has been a running back.
We pay attention to the portal closer than we pay attention to our families right now. And we have not heard any discussion about a running back. None.
I mean, to my knowledge, we're about the only team website that literally logs every visit on our visitor page. I mean, for any school anywhere.
And we have not heard. Now, there's some that slip through the cracks, I think. Not many.
Quiet visitors, maybe.
Yeah. There might be some that slip through the cracks, but we have not heard a single word about a running back.
So what you have now on the running back chart is Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives, Mekhi Nelson, and then a couple of freshmen. I mean, that's kind of where it looks like. And is that enough? And I brought this up with our buddy Damon Benning last night on Big Red Wrap Up. I think with Emmett Johnson, he's been a good 12 to 15 guy. Can he take himself to be like an 18 to 20 guy?
What Damon say?
And it's easier said than done. I mean, That's what we don't know. That's a huge step for running back to go from 12 to 15 type to carries and touches to maybe closer to 20.
You have to throw in what we always throw in, especially in this league. I mean, it would be easier in the Big 12, for instance, to do it. It'd be easier in some conferences than it is in the Big 10.
There's very few 20 carry backs in the Big 10.
Hard to do.
Like 1 or 2, maybe a year.
God dang. I mean, just think about some of the hits Emmett took. Just think about it. You watch the games. He gets rocked. I mean, you get rocked.
They're really going to miss.
Think about the Boston College when he fumbled that hit. Those hits take a toll. You only have so many of those hits in your body. Remember the fumble?
Oh, yeah.
We were freaked out by that hit. It was like,
nothing he could have done about it.
No, that was a fumble where you're just like, oh, you got hit by 3 guys hard.
But when they line up with 2 running backs on the hip pockets of Dylan Raiola, do they have a good second running back? Is Ives that guy? Is Nelson that guy? Is Parker that guy? Or is it somebody else? Because I do like that look when Holgorsen puts the 2 running backs on the hip pockets of Dylan Raiola.
I would say at this point, Rule several times has expressed what I would characterize as supreme confidence in Ives. Several times. On
That's
several occasions. Yeah.
Now, receiver, we still don't know if Alex Bullock is going to come back or not yet. He has not made an announcement. He did walk at senior day.
Okay.
There's a few others, walk-on level guys that you don't really know how that's going to shake out because they're bringing in 4 newcomers. But that receiver chart is really sized down already.
It's sized down. It still could size up a little bit. I mean, you might. I mean, I don't think we're closing the door right now that they could get another on getting another receiver. They could get another receiver. It sounds like. We'll see on that. That room to me has just changed dramatically because you've added Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter and Hardly Gilmore, and you still have Ja'Cory Barney. But a guy like Ja'Cory Barney's got to be. I don't think Ja'Cory Barney can take the attitude. I'm safe. I'll be in the starting lineup.
He got a lot of touches, but did he turn him into bigger plays? I mean,
Barney's, yeah. No, you're right, Sean. You've talked about that. Barney's big in this program, but see, there's good news happening right before our eyes. You don't want a player like Ja'Cory Barney to feel comfortable, right? Don't feel comfortable, young man. Maybe when you're a senior, you can begin to feel a little comfortable, but I don't even know about then. I mean, the best players I've ever dealt with never really felt very comfortable. They always feel somebody's coming to get me. All right. Someone's coming to get my job.
Well, I think the best, most successful people in life always feel that way, how they operate life.
Yeah. So I hope people don't take offense to me saying that. Ja'Cory Barney's kind of beloved in the fan base. You don't want him to feel safe.
Like, think about when Tom Osborne won a national title. He's already starting to think about the next one.
Yeah.
I mean, you celebrate for a day, and then you move on and get ready for that. I mean,
because people are chasing you.
And you got to always be ready for that. But, yeah, the 4 freshmen they bring in are pretty good at receiver, too. I did confirm Jeremiah Jones is at least right now, starting out as a receiver. And that was always the thought. But he has position versatility.
Geez, they got good young guys. I mean, Mosey is an Oregon recruit. I could see him playing a lot. We've talked about Cortez Mills. I mean, we've talked about Quinn Clark, Keelan Smith. They have a good room. Demetrius Bell. Think about Demetrius Bell. How good he looked in the spring game before he went down. They have some serious talent at those spots, Sean. I wonder if any of those guys have ever played running back.
The tight end position for Nebraska, I mean, we've got it pretty sized down to Heinrich Harburg, Luke Lindenmeyer, Carter Nelson. I mean, those are the three. And Mac Markway.
Hey, Sean, go back to
Sorry, I'm trying to get
to receiver.
Okay.
Mosey could play running back.
He could.
So maybe they have options.
They have a plan there with I mean, he's here for the spring, so we'll know.
Okay, keep going.
I don't think we're going to get through the whole chart here, so we
don't need to. We can do more on Friday.
Tight ends, I think we've kind of sized that down. Mac Markway to me is the X factor, as is Carter Nelson. Carter Nelson will miss the spring. I would assume Mac Markway is going to miss the spring too, coming off a knee injury,
still recovering.
Yeah, I mean, usually, it happened in August, so you just don't know where that's going to go. On the O-line, we've hit on the open where that is. I mean, I think on the inside for Nebraska, when you start to look at these numbers, Nebraska obviously has Henry Lutoski as an inside guy that can play, and then Justin Evans.
Two starters, almost surefire starters.
And then is it Sam Sledge at center? Could Turner Corcoran play inside? I mean, I think there's a lot of things that could play itself out with the remainder of this offensive line. Gunnar Gatula, if he were to get beat out at tackle, could he play inside?
Guard.
I mean, he could easily play guard. So I think Gunnar Gatula has established himself as one of the best five guys. And if he is, you move him to another position if you like those tackles better than him.
Where's Grant Bricks?
We'll see where he's at physically with his body. And, he played a low level of Iowa high school football. I think it took some time to develop, but no doubt the redshirt year probably did him well.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. I'm not questioning his development in the program. I am more old school in that if a lineman doesn't start till his third year, that's fine and maybe the way it should be. I mean, Gunnar had a hard job coming in and having to play right away like that.
It was by default, basically. They had no other option,
right?
I mean, to play a young guy like that with Turner and Teddy both going down. But that's our breakdown of the offensive guys. We got plenty of time to keep going through the defensive guys. But when we come back, we'll continue our conversation as we will talk. Let's talk some defensive guys and coaching staff news as well, where Nebraska might go with their staff. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, as we're going to talk coaching staff and kind of where Nebraska's at with that now. But before we get to that, this segment of the show brought to you by HelloFresh. And look, it's that time of year. You're trying to eat right. You want to eat healthy, but you don't have time to go to the grocery store. It might be too cold or it might be too snowy. You don't want to go out and mess with Hy-Vee or your favorite grocery store because it's just a disaster when there's storms and weather coming through. You can't even move around the store. Well, HelloFresh makes it a lot easier for you. They send you all the ingredients, the produce, the vegetables, the meats, the spices, and the recipe cards. They give you the option every week, about 40 or so options of meals, and you can make your menu customized. You can say, I want quick and easy. I want high protein, vegetarian. I like spice, whatever your preferences are. And then they send you a recipe card, all the ingredients. And you're like, well, there's only two of us. How do we? Well, they give you an option to cook for two, R4, R6, R8. And you can do 2 meals to 4 meals. And we did it for a really long time where we were getting just 2 meals a week. And it was perfect. We were home only maybe 2 nights a week to cook, and we had dinner. It was all ready to go. You follow the Sipple Proof recipe card.
Sipple Proof.
And you cook.
Sipple Proof.
But we got
you guys sit down at a kitchen table and eat like a traditional
We
family?
try to, if we can. But like when there's practices and stuff, as a lot of our families with kids in sports know, it's hard.
Take
but
a plate in the truck. And
yeah, I ate my leftover Big Red Wrap-Up pizza on the way here in the car.
That was your lunch.
Yes.
That's not great, Sean.
Not a great lunch, but
No.
I need HelloFresh. But we've got a great promo right now with HelloFresh, HelloFresh.com/Husker10FM. And they're going to give you 10 free meals plus a high protein item for the life of your orders. That's, again, HelloFresh.com/Husker10FM. That's Husker10FM, which stands for Husker 10 free meals. And they're going to give you those 10 free meals and the protein item for the life of your subscription. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. But let's get into the discussion of the coaching staff, because there's a lot there right now with Ed Foley. We know they've moved on from him at Nebraska. That happened over the weekend. Still no real smoke of movement with the special teams coordinator. And for Matt Rule, it's not a coach that's on the road recruiting right now. You don't have your players back for a few weeks. You're trying to recruit. You're trying to do the portal. So I'm interested to know where that is on the list of priorities to get done.
Yeah, what's the priority? I'm sure he's on it. I bet he has a list. I bet he's talked to people. I don't know how quickly he's trying to move. He doesn't have to have it done this week. It's special teams coordinators. You typically don't have like a hot list, right? There's not many markets in the world that would be having this conversation. No. We're doing it, and we will do it. There's some names that people toss around, including myself, like Mike Eckler. Mike Eckler's at Tennessee. Mike Eckler's a former assistant.
Will Compton's pushed for him publicly.
Will Compton's really pushed for him. You've brought up a couple names.
I think Dan Jackson and Damon Benning brought this up on Big Red Wrap Up too. I mean, that would have been a logical guy to be a special teams coordinator with his connections to Nebraska and how well he's done as a coach, as the defensive coordinator at Idaho. But now guess what? He's the head coach at South Dakota State.
Okay. Has he coordinated specials?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting name. So Dan Jackson. I would call these legitimate names. I would just characterize them as names that it wouldn't surprise me if Rule looked at them. Dan Jackson, Mike Eckler.
Well, Dan Jackson just took the head job. So
there's no way.
No, they're announcing him at an official press conference Friday.
Oh, so he's locked into that.
Yeah, I mean, it's his alma mater.
Okay. So no Dan Jackson.
No, he's made the commitment.
The only reason I guess you'd be looking at me like, what is Sipple? He's taking a head coaching job. Well, yeah, there's a head coach at North Dakota State.
Went to USC. He was kind of getting pushed out, though.
Who took a USC position coach job. That's why I was.
Coach Matt Ince.
Yeah.
And I think he left there. He's now the head coach of Fresno.
Could be.
He is.
So they're.
I'm gonna. I can't believe you didn't know that.
People fact check it. Trump.
Yeah, he's the head coach of Fresno. Hired by Garrett Classy.
Abby didn't like that one.
Well, I'm just surprised you didn't know Matt Ince was now the head coach of Fresno State.
No, I don't know that is common American knowledge, to be honest.
Well, you referenced the North Dakota State coach that left for a year to go to USC. He's now the head coach a year later at Fresno State. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine, Sean. I'm used to it. But Bill Bush is a name that comes up. I don't expect it to happen. But I don't know who else. There could be a variety of people he's looking at. Wide variety.
NFL opens up a lot of names.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Guess who guys like Dana Holgorsen, John Butler, think how many people probably have reached out to them.
Right. You wonder about Carlos Polk. He's in the NFL. He's an assistant special teams coordinator at one of the teams. People always throw his name at me. Why not? I mean, he's got a lot of experience.
Now, this job right now, it's not a guy on the road recruiting.
Right.
So
it doesn't have to be.
This position's not like a prioritized recruiter. Like it's not, we got to send Bruce Reed on the road to recruit. No. I mean, it's a different deal now with these unlimited coaches.
But it's an extremely important position, as we've seen. I mean, we've seen the bad and the debilitating effect it can have on a team. They were a mess. The special teams was a mess. Probably a schematic mess to a certain degree. Certainly the operation, the kick up, the PAT operation was
the holding
flawed. Well, the snapping and holding was flawed. I don't know that the protection was bad, but the snapping and holding was a mess. So it is what it is. I mean, I'm not I hope people don't are like, boy, Sipple's being hardcore. I mean, they had 10 kicks blocked. I mean, come on, man. I mean, just as a for instance, Eckler at Tennessee's been there 4 years. By comparison, they've had 1 kick block in 4 years. We've covered Nebraska where it used to be the case. 10 in a season is extreme.
I would venture to guess in like the 100+ year history of Nebraska football, there's never been close to 10 in a year.
Right.
I don't know how you could.
Right. Right. I mean, you've covered it a long time. How many years? 25? 25?
25.
25? 20?
25.
Okay, 25. Do you recall a year where they've had that?
No.
I don't. Not even close. So it's interesting.
I mean, I remember you used to just kind of fret if like, man, Jordan Congdon doesn't have the range past 45. That was like,
we would fret.
and he was like the freshman All-American kicker.
Fret, yeah. And we would fret about that. He wasn't getting kicks blocked. Interesting.
My favorite was when Josh Brown one spring just decided to screw around and play receiver.
Yeah.
And then they let him.
Right.
And then it allowed like Sandra DeAngelis to beat him out at kicker because he wasn't.
You know what? That was a time when kicker was a little bit of a mess. But in the context of the excellence that they had, it was kind of like, what are you doing?
Then they had that random, like David Dykes was the guy for a cup of coffee. Then they went on the run of Henry and Maher. And I mean, I'd put Pat Smith in that group and Foltz. And,
yeah. Pat Smith was good. He was just a 1 year guy.
1 year guy. But I mean, that kick he made at Penn State.
He made 2 of them because they jumped on that first one. He had to make 2 into a god awful wind on a god awful day. It was actually, I'm glad you referenced that. Those 2 kicks he made, one that didn't count and one that did, I thought those were amazing. It was one of the most amazing scenes I've experienced covering Nebraska football.
My favorite part about that is like Foltz like knew it was good the second it went out, and he turned around and just started shaking Pat's hand.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Like it wasn't even like 20 yards down the field, and Foltz just started shaking his hand after.
Sean, you know what a badass Smith must be to do that on the road? And you remember how cold and windy it was?
Pat was cool. Like, I mean, he was for a kicker, like he had a presence in the locker room.
God, what a dude.
You'd kill for it. And I saw Pat at the game with Drew Brown. They were at one of the earlier games. Maybe it was Colorado or one of the earlier games this year. And they said to me that, boy, it was after Colorado. They said the snaps were really bad. Right. They're like, it didn't matter who the kicker was. Like those snaps that were coming
this year. John Hull was not the problem. No, I want to make that very clear. John Hull is a very good kicker. You have a kicker.
Oh, those guys were back for the Sam Foltz game where they did like the honoring of it, and they all came back to be there with the family. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, it don't matter who your kicker is right now, and the snaps are that bad.
Right. I don't think the holds are great. So that they do have a kicker. Okay. John Hull. We'll see on the punter, Jack McAllister.
And technically Alvano's back too.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, we'll see where he's at after his deal, but
right.
I mean, John Hall's Ohio State game is hard to look past.
You're bringing in a veteran punter, Jack McAllister, and you still have Camden Cook. So there'll be some competition there.
Kevin Galick
is a long snapper.
But yeah, McAllister's coming in to start.
Yeah.
I mean, he started at Washington for 3 years. He started in a national championship game, Steve.
Okay, Sean.
We had a spirited debate.
It wasn't a debate. I just don't like handing jobs to people, even though I do it sometimes. I do it sort of irresponsibly.
All right. When we come back, Abby Barmore will join the show and add some responsibility to the show here.
God, it needs it.
When we come back, you're listening to the HuskerOnline Show. We're back here on the HuskerOnline Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Abby Barmore for the Mailbag segment. This segment of the HuskerOnline Show brought to you by Prizepicks. There is no better way to get into the action. You're just sitting down watching college basketball, NBA, whatever your favorite sport is, the NFL, college football playoffs. Prizepicks lets you get in on it by saying, hey, simply more or less. Daily fantasy sports. It's really easy. Will he have more than 2 touchdowns or less than 2 touchdowns? It's that easy. You pick your favorite stat categories. You can win up to 10 times your money on Prizepicks. You can even turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps on Prizepicks. Pick your combination, your players, what you want it to be at Prizepicks. And we've got a great deal as well at Husker Online. Once you put your first $5 in, we're going to give you $50 by simply using the promo code HuskerOnline at Prizepicks. That's promo code HuskerOnline. Put $5 in, we're going to get you $50 instantly at Prizepicks. Thanks to Prizepicks for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online show. But Abby, where are we going?
Okay, first one. Will the loss of Nash and Ty be too big for the defensive line to take the next step forward next year?
I don't. That's a great question, and it's a legit question. Ty Robinson, I think we've established is going to be selected in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. Almost, he's a lock, it seems like. He was a monster towards the end of the season, the latter half of the season. Really hard to replace that size and athleticism. Same with Nash to a slightly lesser extent. Well, Nash isn't a surefire draft pick, probably. Late round, Sean?
Yeah, I would say like 5 to 7 round. I mean, he's a premium position in that sense.
Yes. And he's athletic. He's a big athletic guy, Abby. Now, I like this young talent they have. I like Keona Davis and Cam Lenhart and Van Poppel. I like the look at I like the looks of those guys. They have to get better though. Judy's in that conversation too. I think Jalen George might be a year away. Lenhart's good, has to get better. Van Poppel's he's good, has to get better. Davis is good, has to get better. But those are all guys that are pretty capable, I think. They're all athletic, big men.
Yeah, when you lose 5th and 6th year players, you don't just replace them overnight. But I think today they have enough. I think the key is depth. You don't want to have to over rely on a player. You want to have depth.
Here's the thing, Sean and Abby. Think about it. I mean, I have to catch myself. How can I expect Riley Van Poppel and Keona Davis to match the production of Ty Robinson? How can I expect it? Ty Robinson was a 6th-year player. I mean, he wasn't what we saw 2 years ago. What we saw this year, he wasn't even close to that 2 years ago. So why would I expect these other guys to be even close to that? He wasn't, Sean, I would argue he wasn't close to what he was this year, last year.
You got flashes of him, but never the full picture.
Right.
All right, next question.
Okay, will Deshaun Singleton and Javen Wright be back in 2025? We've had a lot of questions about these guys.
No, Deshaun Singleton is playing in the draft all-star games. And, he could play that JUCO, get the year back game, but that's not in the picture.
No.
And Javen Wright has played 6 years at Nebraska. So, I guess he could get a medical extra year, but he's already got the COVID year on top of the 5 years. So I have not heard of anything about him coming back.
Nothing. I've not heard that at all.
I know there's been this speculation that it's a thought, but nothing that would lead me to believe they're going to do that. I mean, I think they've turned the page there. I think they're ready to go with some of the guys they're bringing in.
I think so, but now I would say though it'd be a welcome development.
It would be, yeah. I
haven't heard.
And here's the thing: we'll know fairly quickly because classes begin January 21. So we're about 2 weeks away from a lot more roster things happening. All right, next question.
Okay. What position group will take the biggest hit in order to get down to the 105 roster limit?
Probably the defensive backfield, the secondary.
Okay.
Because right now,
28.
They're at 29. But they're going to be we know of another one coming. They're going to be at 30.
Yeah.
30.
So, that's a big number. It's a big room.
30 defensive backs. Put it in perspective. That's more basketball players than Fred Hoiberg and Amy Williams have combined.
Yeah, you need an auditorium for their position meeting. That's a big room, right?
And now Evan Cooper used to say, it's like we play 5 though. So like 5 of the 11 in the defense are DBs.
Right.
When
proportionality.
So when you break it down like that, it makes more sense because essentially like you have that hybrid player in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the secondary is where I look to see some trimming.
God, and when you look at that group of guys, there's a lot of guys that are pretty good, and pretty even.
What I don't really, I mean, they just went so crazy with the numbers in the redshirt freshman class. I mean, the number of players in that group.
Yeah, if you just look at the chart,
and every one of them redshirted.
Yeah.
So it's like a full basketball team of DBs in one class. So yeah, I think it will be interesting how that all shakes itself out with the 105. Next question.
Okay. Which incoming freshmen have the best chance at making an immediate impact?
Well,
Jamarian Parker.
I think Cortez Mills.
Yeah.
Has to be the top of my list.
And what about Dawson Merritt?
Coming off shoulder surgery, but yeah, you would think, and I think one of those defensive linemen between Malcolm Simpson, Cade Pedshock, and Tyson Terry.
Okay.
Because Tyson Terry is older. I mean,
we always leave out Jeremiah Jones.
Well, Jeremiah Jones is a receiver.
And so is Cortez Mills.
And so you just wonder where he factors in with the guys they have.
They have a lot. That's the thing. I get it, Sean. I get it. They do. They have a lot. But they're going to play 8 or 9, right?
Well, usually you only play 6 or 7.
Okay. 6 or 7.
It's hard to play 8 or 9 receivers in a 60-snap football game.
You're right. Hard to crack that. You know what the answer is, Abby? Cortez Mills. That's the answer.
I think he's the safest bet of all the guys. I think Dawson Merritt would put himself up there. And I think one D lineman could play more than 4 games.
Matt Rule, when I think he was asked that question, pretty much asked that question. Dawson Merritt, he mentioned Dawson Merritt. Did he mention a DB too? No, he just mentioned Merritt, and he mentioned two. He mentioned the receiver Cortez Mills and Dawson Merritt. That's who he mentioned.
Jamarian Parker's going to have an opportunity.
That's why I said Jamarian, because I think that position's a little light right now. A little light, just a little light. I mean, that's all I'm going to say. I thought they would go get a running back.
I still don't. I mean, we've had this debate, but a lot already. But I don't understand why Dowdell left. I really don't.
Well, let's have it. Is it just a pure money? You do know, because Rule addressed it. Rule made it. I thought Matt made it sound like it was pretty much a money decision. That he didn't even necessarily want to leave, but I bet Kentucky gave him quite a number. That's my read on it. Isn't that your read?
Yeah, I mean the money is what's driving college football right now, and that's what drove that, is what it felt like. But all right, final question, or do we have 2 final questions?
Yeah, I got 2 quick ones today. So the playoffs are starting for, I guess, college football, but also for the NFL. So who is your pick to play in the Super Bowl?
Not very sexy.
Sean's not biased at all.
But the Chiefs Lions have the home field advantage, the bye. I think you have to go Chiefs Lions right now, and the Chiefs are so skilled in January. I mean, they're built for this, and they're going to avoid Baltimore and Buffalo in the first game back. So they'll play like Houston or San Diego or someone like that to go to the AFC title game. So they have a great path.
You're right. I wish I could push back a little harder. And listen, I'm not the authority on the NFL. I pick up bits and pieces. Allen had an incredible year at Buffalo. A little hard to pick against, I think, except I know what you're going to say. How do you pick against Mahomes?
In Arrowhead.
Right. And what was the Chiefs record before they threw the last game?
15-1.
15-1. Then they threw the last game, didn't play their guys. Going 15-1. Now people say, yeah, but SIP, the games were close. I don't care. Going 15-1 in the NFL? Are you serious? I don't care how they win the games. That's an incredible record.
And it's like, I thought the feat of beating Pittsburgh and Houston on like short weeks back to back.
Oh, yeah. They just know how to win.
That clinched it. I mean, that took out Buffalo. Buffalo thought they could get the Chiefs and get the home field. But then the Chiefs go and beat Pittsburgh and Houston, 2 divisional winning type teams back to back. I mean, that was pretty impressive.
Really impressive what Detroit's done, because they've had to overcome a lot of injury. I'm not convinced that they're 15-2, but I think you could make a strong argument for Philly or Minnesota.
How great's Dan Campbell, though?
Oh, he's unbelievable. I mean, what he's done with that franchise. Sean, I grew up at a time where the Lions were a complete afterthought. Just a complete afterthought.
Just that city in general, though. I can't imagine how great it is to be in Detroit when they've had such bad football for all those years.
Yeah, it must be magical.
To the point now on Thanksgiving, their game is better than the Cowboys game.
Right.
It used to always kind of be, the Lions game's first.
Mm-hmm.
But now the Lions game's the draw.
There you go, Abby. How about some NFL
What's our?
talk?
We got one more.
Okay, one more. What is your favorite breakfast food?
I have a problem. I mean, in this world, you can eat way too much cereal. It's a fallback that, I mean, I eat grape nuts. But it's still not even great to eat too much cereal. I eat way too much cereal, way too much.
I keep it simple. I like eggs.
That's a good idea. You can eat all the eggs you want.
And I'm an over hard eggs person.
That's fine.
I like to break the yolk, flip it.
My dietary advice, I wouldn't follow if I was anybody, but I've read on TikTok, you can have all the eggs and all the salt you want. That it's a myth that you can't.
And you can't beat bacon.
That bacon we had at
Peter Luger. It was like a steak.
I don't even know how to describe that bacon. It was sinful.
It was like a 5-ounce piece of bacon.
Yeah, it was fat. It was unbelievable.
It was thick, long, and I just thought one would do it to split. So the waiter gave me a hard time. He's like, "You just
gonna have one?
Just gonna have one." So it was $8 a slice of bacon.
Worth it.
Well worth it. Abby, what's your breakfast?
Yeah, what is your breakfast?
I love breakfast foods. Obviously bacon, but I love like waffles. I love cereal, but I don't eat it that much.
God, I'm with you. I'm with you. Breakfast is the best.
I love breakfast
because all of everything we talked about is awesome.
Right, and there's like French toast.
I get the hives
pancakes.
when I go to a hotel and there's a breakfast buffet. I'm just so
you get the hives.
Overcome.
Well, sometimes we get lucky and we'll stay at a Marriott or somewhere that comes with like an elite breakfast, and you just don't know what to do.
No, I have to stop myself, Abby, and say, take it easy. Take it easy.
Pastry bar.
Yeah, take it easy. Don't ruin your day here.
Yeah, donuts. Come on, they're such great breakfast.
Take
foods.
it easy.
Hey, or you just go big on breakfast and don't eat the rest of the day.
Yeah, you can kind of mess up your morning though.
All right. Well, that was fun. When we come back, we're going to talk Nebraska basketball and their loss to Iowa and what's next. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple. And this segment of the Husker Online Show, SIP, is brought to you by who?
Larson Motors. Larson Motors in Nebraska City. If you're looking for a new vehicle, go there. It's one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one locale. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, or Ram never has been easier. So start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com. That's LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people,
real deals. And let me tell you, those 25s are coming out now and people are getting excited.
It's exciting time.
Like the Tahoe changed their front.
They did.
So that's a big Tahoe year.
I wonder what that looks like.
Oh, it's not a drastic change, but it's a change.
What are you driving?
Yukon.
You're driving a Yukon. Okay. It's a nice vehicle you drive.
Cobble. We both have, we're all friends, but we have competing car dealership deals.
Anyway, Larson Motors is the spot to go to.
All right.
In Nebraska City, right down Highway 2 from Lincoln.
Well, let's get into it. And Robin's not here, so I'm sure he's going to cringe when you and I talk about basketball on his sacred territory.
It's his sacred territory. We both follow it very closely.
I watch every play.
Yeah, and I don't when it's on Peacock.
You were so behind. So Sipple, I was like, God, they cut into it, Sip. And you're like, no, they're still up 13. I go, no, it's down to like 4.
Yeah. I thought they're up 30. And whatever. I tracked the game, but I was listening to the game when Nebraska went up 15. That was in the second half early. And Jake Muehlheisen said, Jake Muehlheisen does the color analyst for the statewide radio broadcast. He said, this is where Nebraska has to step on Iowa's throat. And Nebraska did not.
Well, they missed so many shots that it led to transition.
Yeah.
And that's what Fred Hoiberg said on the postgame. And it's funny. Somebody asked a question like right after he had just said this. And he was like, I just said transition. Like Iowa did everything off Nebraska's misses where they were nailing shots in transition.
It's a really hard loss. It's not, a lot of Nebraska fans took this one hard. It's a tough one. I don't go too far down that road. It's such a long season. You immediately have a chance to get it back at Purdue. This is not Zach Edey Purdue. All right. You're not going to this 11 a.m. game at Mackey on Saturday.
No students.
And thinking, oh, they have no shot. No, Nebraska will have a very good shot. But anyway, this one got away from them. They tie the game, at the end of regulation. Bryce Williams hits a great shot. They should have fouled him. They were trying to, and it was just they just didn't do a good job on getting it done. Bryce hits a 3, but then Iowa dominates overtime. Dominates.
Yeah, and it was just kind of on brand with every game at Carver Hawkeye Arena where just a couple of guys just go off.
Yeah, in this case, the couple guys that went off were Josh Dix. He had 31. He had 31 points. He's from Council Bluffs, Abraham Lincoln. 6'6" kid shooter, and the other one that really went off was Peyton Sanford, another shooter, an Iowa kid. He's from Waukee, Iowa. 2 Iowa kids. Barry, Nebraska. He had 30 points. I believe Sanford had 27 in the second half, which sort of blows my mind that Nebraska would allow Sanford
30. He had 30. Every point.
Oh my God,
Sanford
is that right?
He had like a Wilt Chamberlain type half.
What the hell? How does that happen?
He made 7 threes.
Hold on.
7 of 15, I believe.
I got it right here, Sean. Peyton Sanford, 6 for 10. Josh Dix, 7 for 10.
But those two guys
were a combined 13 of 20. 13 of 20 from the 3-point.
That's a respectable free throw percentage.
It's for you. And sorry, they were 17 of 35 from 3-point line. Iowa. That's almost 50%.
And UCLA was 4 of 28.
Big difference. Yep.
So now you go to Mackey. These early January games are, you don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like. Nebraska had a break at Iowa. Like it was only half full.
Me and you butt heads on this topic a lot. I don't call that a break.
There's no students.
I don't care. It's the problem is there's no energy in the building. I think any athlete would tell you, I want energy. I want the stands full.
But these early January games, like Nebraska filled up PBA for UCLA.
Yeah, Nebraska.
Like that's not the norm.
No, the Nebraska's program has a lot of energy.
For like when the students are gone and you take out like 4,000 students, not a lot of other Big Ten schools fill up like that.
No, and you're right. Iowa had a terrible atmosphere. Iowa's program, I was told by a longtime Iowa basketball aficionado that he said compare it to Danny Nee in Danny Nee's waning years.
Fran, good analogy.
Yeah, Fran McCaffrey. There's not a lot of excitement for that program right now. There's just not.
Well, I feel like there's not a lot of excitement because you kind of know what's going to happen. They're going to get to the tournament barely,
yeah,
and they'll get beat,
yeah,
or they'll make the NIT and they'll make a little bit of a run.
Yeah, it's pretty predictable,
and you kind of know what's going to happen.
He's 65. He's been there a long time, so
he's got the same bench of guys there too. I feel like I know his assistants because they've been there forever.
Yeah, and again, this is. I bring that up in part because it kind of tells you why it's a frustrating loss for Nebraska. It was so gettable. It was gettable going in, and then they're up 15. And I thought, oh my God, they're up 15. They're safe. Stupid. Well, I shouldn't have thought that.
And if you're Hoiberg, you're an Iowa State Ames guy. You have a chance to be 3-1 and put Iowa at 1-3. I mean, being the Iowan that he is, like
absolutely,
you could have twisted the knife into Iowa.
100.
Put him at 1-3.
100. It's the kind, my guess, and I don't pretend to know Fred that well, but my guess is that's the kind of loss that keeps you up at night. Literally keeps you up at night.
But now you have this Purdue game, which is big, and the Massey rankings on On3 have Nebraska about a 9-point dog on the road.
Yeah.
Give or take. They're favored to beat Rutgers, though, and they're a slight dog at Maryland. And usually on the road, you are a dog in this league. Yeah. I mean, more often than not. But
it's really hard.
I do want to hit on this real quick. How about UCLA? They had another big meltdown against against Michigan.
Got beat 19 but I think they got beat 19 by Michigan at Pauley in Westwood.
And our buddy Mick, don't call me Bo Pelini Cronin, Had
He kind of went off.
what's that?
He kind of went off again.
Yeah, his press conference against Nebraska was like PG compared to what he did after that.
Well, he said his players are delusional. You can read those comments if you get them on your screen. They're on 3. He said that he has to supply all the energy all the time. That he goes to practice and he's the one that has to supply all the energy. That we're not hungry enough. That the players are delusional. Yeah, it was. I don't know what. I mean, there's different ways to look at those comments. One sort of critique would be that as a leader, you should probably accept responsibility. Now, I've read some comments though of UCLA fans that said, "No, good. I'm glad he's saying this stuff." So I don't know. Cronin, as we found out, well, you didn't. It's not like me or you ever had Cronin in our minds ever. Now he's in the Big Ten.
I mean, he wasn't here. Like, it was over 10 years ago when he last played here.
Well, yeah, when he last coached here for Cincinnati. So now he's in our midst, and it's kind of interesting. He's kind of an interesting guy, I'd say. Like, one thing he said that it's not the greatest look when he said, and this is what he said, paraphrasing it, but it's accurate. He said, "I'm 53. I almost got 500 wins. I don't really need to do this." It's like, come on, man.
God, he's only 53.
Yeah, he does almost have 500 wins.
No, he's a winner.
Yeah.
Well, Big Ten basketball in general, it's great television. I mean,
it is.
And the Peacocks got you kind of strangled because you think about that double header: Nebraska, Iowa, UCLA, Michigan, both on Peacock.
Damn it!
But they're all. I was telling Robin this. The Big Ten's all in on Friday night. There is a Friday night game on Fox every single week here for the rest of the year through March.
That's beautiful.
So, and then there's some Fridays where there's 2 or 3 Big Ten games.
As an older gentleman, I like those Friday games. It's not like I'm out clubbing anymore. I mean,
no, it's smart business for the Big Ten to put Friday. I wish PBA got a few of those. It'd be great down here for a Friday night game. Yeah, we had Indiana.
You're right. Big Ten basketball is a beautiful diversion.
All right. Well, fun show. We'll get Robin back from Iowa. Hopefully.
Yeah. He'll be back. I bet he took that loss hard, though. You know Robin.
Oh, yeah.
I bet he was pissed. I texted him before the game and said, "You'll be covering a W." And he sent back a text. Was like, "Oh,
he's pretty cynical."
Yeah, we'll see on that.
Well, his dad was there from Cedar Falls, and they had breakfast. So hopefully his dad settled him down.
Yeah. Well, at least he has nice weather to drive back in. Sunny.
It's like 5 degrees, but all right, Super Saver. Let's in the weather conversations.
Yeah, in the line and we're in the line at Super Saver.
All right, we'll be back Friday for the second installment of HuskerOnline Headlines. For Abby Barmore, Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan.